On a quiet autumn morning, the air was crisp and filled with anticipation in the small town of Evergreen. Hannah, a warm-hearted woman loved by everyone, had finally gone into labor after a challenging pregnancy. She and her husband, Jack, had eagerly awaited the arrival of their twins, a long-awaited dream for the couple who had tried for years to start a family. The town shared their excitement, with neighbors and friends offering prayers and good wishes, knowing the couple's journey had been anything but easy. Hannah had always been strong, a pillar in the community known for her kindness and determination, but this day would test her resilience in unimaginable ways. As Jack paced the hospital hallway, his mind raced with both excitement and worry. The pregnancy had been complicated, and Hannah had been in labor for nearly 20 hours. Every moment was a battle, the doctors working tirelessly to manage her pain and stabilize her vital signs as the delivery drew near. Jack's heart pounded as he watched nurses and doctors rush in and out of the room. His usually calm demeanor was crumbling, and he could only grip his hands together, whispering silent prayers, asking for strength, for himself, for Hannah, and for the two small lives about to enter the world. When the doctor appeared at the door, his face solemn, Jack braced himself, but nothing could have prepared him for what came next. "Jack," the doctor said softly, his tone laced with grief, "we need to talk. There have been complications." Jack felt his world tilt, his stomach plummeting as he was ushered into a nearby room. The doctor explained that Hannah had lost an alarming amount of blood, her body weakened from the difficult labor. They had tried everything within their power to stabilize her, but her heart had stopped. The words hung in the air like a curse, echoing in Jack's ears as he tried to process the weight of it. Hannah, his Hannah, was gone, taken from him in the very moment they had awaited for so long. Jack sat in silence, his vision blurring as the news settled in. How could this be? How could the world be so cruel? As the doctor left, a nurse approached Jack gently, informing him that despite the tragedy, the twins had been born healthy, though premature. She offered a small, trembling smile, and through his grief, Jack found a shred of solace in the fact that his wife's legacy lived on through their children. Numb and barely able to move, Jack followed the nurse to the nursery, his heart aching yet eager to meet the little souls who had brought so much joy to Hannah's life. His steps felt heavy, his mind clouded with sorrow, but the moment he saw them, something inside him stirred. Two tiny, fragile beings lay swaddled in a crib, their breaths shallow but steady, their little faces peaceful and pure. He felt Hannah's spirit in the room, as if she was there, watching over them. One of the nurses approached Jack quietly, her face etched with something he couldn't quite place. Was it curiosity? Worry? She looked at him, hesitated, then spoke in a hushed voice. "Mr. Ellison, there's something unusual about your twins. We've never seen anything like it." Jack's heart lurched as he stared at the nurse, a new wave of fear washing over him. She gently lifted one of the baby's tiny arms, revealing a birthmark on his wrist, a delicate pattern that looked like a faint, swirling vine, identical to the birthmark Hannah had on her wrist. Jack's eyes widened in shock. He had never believed in superstitions or fate, but seeing that familiar mark on his son felt like Hannah's way of staying with them, as if she had left a part of herself behind. But there was more. The nurse went on to explain that the twins had exhibited a peculiar reaction when separated, their tiny faces scrunching in distress, letting out cries that could only be soothed by being close together. When placed side by side, they would settle instantly, their tiny hands reaching for each other instinctively. The nurses had tried everything to calm them, but they only seemed at peace when they were touching. Jack felt a shiver run down his spine as he watched the twins, mesmerized by the profound connection they shared. It was as if they were aware of their loss, clinging to each other in an unspoken understanding, bonded not just by blood, but by the echo of their mother's love. As the minutes passed, Jack felt a surge of both awe and fear. Something extraordinary had happened here, something he could neither explain nor fully understand. In a quiet voice, one of the older nurses whispered that some babies carry the essence of those they've lost, a part of the spirit that remains with them. Jack had heard tales of such things, stories of children born under unique circumstances, carrying pieces of those who had passed on. He had always dismissed these stories as folk legends, old wives' tales meant to comfort those left behind. But now, standing here, he found himself wondering if there was more truth to it than he had ever realized. Lost in thought, Jack reached down, touching his son's tiny hand, feeling the warmth of life that pulsed through him. In that moment, he made a promise to Hannah, to his twins, to himself. He would protect them, raise them in the light of her love, ensuring that her memory lived on in every step they took. His grief was still raw, a wound that felt as though it would never heal, but the sight of his children offered a sliver of hope, a chance for him to find purpose amidst the pain. He looked at them, his voice barely a whisper. "I don't know how I'll do this," he murmured, "but I'll make sure you both know who your mother was, and I'll carry her spirit with us." Just as he thought the day's surprises were over, the nurse returned, her face troubled, a phial clutched in her hand. She spoke with hesitation, as if unsure of whether to continue. "Mr. Ellison, there's something else. We ran routine tests on the twins, and while everything seems normal, there's one thing we can't explain. Their heartbeats, they're synchronized perfectly, and not just with each other." She paused, then added, almost too softly to hear, "Their rhythm. It matches the last recorded rhythm of Hannah's heartbeat before it stopped." A chill ran through Jack, his heart hammering as he tried to grasp the weight of her words. The implications were staggering, the idea surreal, and yet, in his grief-stricken state, he found himself clinging to this inexplicable connection as a sign, a message from Hannah herself. She had left, but she was here. She had been taken, but somehow, through their children, she lived on. The news of Hannah's passing, paired with the astonishing circumstances surrounding the birth of her twins, spread through Evergreen like wildfire. It was as if a solemn hush had settled over the town, blending grief with awe. People whispered in church pews, shared tearful glances in grocery aisles, and passed quiet condolences whenever they saw Jack. But amidst the mourning, curiosity stirred like an uninvited guest. Hannah's death had been a tragic shock, yet the twins' birth had brought an eerie sense of wonder, a miracle woven into heartbreak. No one could shake the feeling that something supernatural had transpired in that hospital room. Jack, carrying the weight of his grief and the bewilderment over his children, felt the town's eyes on him whenever he ventured out. He kept to himself in those first few days, preferring solitude to sympathy, but he couldn't ignore the undercurrent of mystery that had taken hold of his community. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers would stop him on the street, their words carefully chosen, their voices laced with questions they didn't dare ask outright. The nurse's words about the twins' synchronized heartbeats had burrowed into his mind, echoing whenever he closed his eyes, filling his dreams with whispers and memories of Hannah. Unable to endure the silence any longer, Jack decided to meet with Reverend Thompson, the town's priest and an old friend of Hannah's family. Perhaps he could find solace, or at least make sense of the strange events that haunted him. Stepping into the church, Jack found the Reverend seated at the altar, his head bowed, deep in prayer. When the Reverend saw Jack, he rose, embracing him tightly, the weight of unspoken sympathy lingering between them. Jack explained everything, from the birthmark on his son's wrist that mirrored Hannah's to the twins' synchronized heartbeats. Reverend Thompson listened, his face growing more solemn with each word, nodding with an understanding Jack hadn't anticipated. "There are mysteries beyond our understanding, Jack," the Reverend said softly, his gaze distant. "I believe that love, true love, leaves imprints that even death cannot erase. Hannah was a remarkable woman. Her spirit, her kindness. Perhaps she's left a mark on them, a part of her that will live on through those children." Jack's throat tightened, and he fought back tears, feeling a strange comfort in the Reverend's words. But before he could respond, Reverend Thompson's face grew pensive, And he continued, "There's an old passage in the Book of the Heart, an ancient scripture that speaks of souls bonded by fate. I'm not suggesting this is that, but the way you've described these children, it's as if they carry her heart within them." The words stirred something deep within Jack, something he couldn't quite name, but that resonated with an unexpected intensity. That evening, he returned home, his mind swimming with thoughts he hadn't dared to entertain before. Was it possible that some part of Hannah was still here, woven into the very fabric of their children? He lay awake beside the twins' cribs, listening to the rhythmic sound of their breaths, his heart filled with a mix of hope and longing. As he drifted to sleep, a vivid memory of Hannah came to him, a night not long before her passing, when they had lain together, Hannah's hand resting on her swollen belly. "They'll carry my heart, Jack," she had whispered, her voice warm with love and certainty. He had laughed it off then, thinking it a simple expression of her devotion. But now her words felt like prophecy. Days passed, and Jack's life settled into a new routine, yet the town's intrigue around the twins only grew stronger. As people visited to pay their respects, they couldn't help but cast glances at the babies, hoping to glimpse the mysterious birthmark or witness the uncanny way they clung to each other. Many swore they could feel Hannah's presence around them, a warmth that lingered whenever they held the twins. Soon, whispers of miracle babies began circulating, and the story of Hannah's last moments took on a life of its own. People speculated about everything from reincarnation to divine intervention, each tale more fantastical than the last. One evening, Sarah, an elderly woman who had known Hannah since childhood, approached Jack with a look of quiet reverence. She had been a midwife in her younger years and had seen her share of inexplicable occurrences. She placed a gentle hand on Jack's shoulder and murmured, "I've only seen this once before, a long time ago in a village far from here. A mother had passed, leaving behind a newborn, and that child grew up to show signs of knowing things no one had taught her, things that only her mother could have known." Jack listened, his heart pounding as Sarah's voice dropped to a whisper. "Some say love is the strongest tether, binding us beyond the veil. Don't fear it, Jack. Embrace it." The next day, a small gathering was held at the church to honor Hannah's memory, a ceremony filled with bittersweet hymns and tearful stories. As Jack held the twins in his arms, he could feel the weight of everyone's gaze, a collective yearning for answers that no one dared voice. Near the end of the service, Reverend Thompson stepped forward, his voice steady yet filled with emotion as he spoke about Hannah's life and her impact on the town. He mentioned her kindness, her strength, and the way she had touched everyone around her. But it was his final words that left the room in a stunned silence. "Perhaps in these two children, we see more than just her legacy," the Reverend said, his voice a soft tremor that echoed in the stillness. "Perhaps they carry her spirit, a piece of her heart, reminding us that love transcends all boundaries, even death itself." A murmur ran through the crowd, people exchanging glances, some nodding, others dabbing at their eyes. The sentiment was simple yet profound, and it stirred something deep within each person present, a shared understanding that resonated far beyond the walls of the church. Later that evening, as Jack walked home with the twins cradled close, he felt a strange peace settle over him, a fragile calm that softened the edges of his grief. His children had become the town's hope, a symbol of resilience, and a reminder of love's enduring power. The community rallied around him in ways he hadn't expected, neighbors bringing meals, offering to babysit, sharing stories of Hannah that Jack had never heard before. The twins had unwittingly united the town, bridging old divides and strengthening bonds, their very existence a quiet testament to the love that had created them. As Jack prepared the twins for bed, he noticed a small gathering outside his window, a few townsfolk lingering by his gate, their faces lit with a mixture of sorrow and wonder. They stood in respectful silence, some holding candles, others bowing their heads in prayer. A strange sense of unity filled the air, an unspoken acknowledgement of the miracle they had all witnessed together. Jack felt an overwhelming gratitude for his community, for the shared grief that had brought them together, for the support they offered without expectation. But even as he marveled at the unity his children had inspired, a part of him remained haunted by the mystery surrounding them. That night, as he lay in bed, he found himself replaying Reverend Thompson's words, Sarah's quiet counsel, the lingering glances of his neighbors. He knew that their journey was only beginning, that the questions surrounding his children would continue to ripple through the town, stirring conversations and inspiring beliefs that defied explanation. In the quiet stillness of the night, he whispered a promise to Hannah, a vow spoken to the woman he loved and the spirit he believed still lingered. He would raise their children with a heart full of love, honoring the mystery she had left behind. And as he drifted into a restless sleep, he felt the faintest touch, as if a hand had brushed his cheek. A gentle, fleeting caress that made him believe, if only for a moment, that Hannah was still watching over them. In the weeks following Hannah's funeral, Evergreen found itself wrapped in a curious mix of reverence and mystery. Life resumed its usual rhythm, yet there was a new undercurrent, an almost sacred aura around Jack's twins that had everyone in town whispering. Every day, people from every corner of town would visit, bringing offerings of meals, clothes, and small toys, all as a gesture of respect and love. Each visitor left with a new story to tell, a strange sensation when they touched the twins, an inexplicable feeling of warmth or calm that lingered long after they had left. Rumors spread quickly. Some said the twins had inherited their mother's spirit, while others believed they carried a piece of heaven within them. Jack felt both honored and unnerved by this wave of fascination, torn between protecting his children and sharing their inexplicable bond with the community. Jack was struggling to adapt to his new role as a single father, and the twins were his only remaining link to Hannah. He clung to them as though they were the last threads binding him to the love of his life. Yet, as comforting as their presence was, they also served as a daily reminder of her absence. Late one night, Jack was reading through Hannah's journal, a treasured item he had found shortly after her passing. The journal was filled with small messages to the twins, notes about her hopes for their future, and affectionate words that seemed to reach out to Jack across the divide between life and death. On one particular page, she had written a message that caught him off guard. To my little lights, my heart's beat will always find you. Wherever you go, know that you carry a part of me. Never feel alone because love binds us in ways no one can explain. Jack read the line over and over, the weight of her words settling heavily in his chest. How had she known? It was as if she had foreseen that her love would be the guiding force in their lives, even if she couldn't be her herself. Overwhelmed, Jack placed the journal down and reached over to touch the hands of his sleeping children, marveling at how they instinctively clasped each other, a constant reminder of the connection they shared with Hannah. As the days turned into months, strange occurrences continued to follow Jack and the twins. The first incident happened on a cold winter morning. Jack was preparing breakfast when he heard one of the twins cry out sharply. Rushing to their cribs, he found both babies awake, their eyes wide with a focus and clarity unusual for their age. Jack noticed that his daughter, Emily, had somehow managed to grab onto her brother Eli's hand. They looked up at him with expressions that almost seemed knowing. It was unsettling, yet Jack felt no fear. Instead, he experienced a peculiar sense of reassurance, as though the twins were somehow aware of his emotions, comforting him in ways only Hannah had ever managed. One evening, Jack's closest friend, Ben, who had been Hannah's childhood friend, came over to visit. Ben had kept his distance since her passing, grieving quietly, but he finally felt ready to meet the twins. The moment he entered the nursery, he paused, taking a sharp breath. His hand went to his chest as he looked at Jack, his eyes filled with a mix of sorrow and wonder. "It's strange, Jack, being around them. It's like I can feel her presence," Ben said softly, his voice wavering. Jack simply nodded, understanding exactly what he meant. They both sat in silence, watching the twins sleep, and for the first time since Hannah's passing, Jack felt a sense of peace. Yet as peaceful as the twins appeared, the town's fascination only grew. People wanted explanations, and Jack was often stopped by strangers and acquaintances alike, each eager to share their theories about what might be happening with the twins. Some proposed scientific reasons, pointing to genetic anomalies or inherited traits that could explain their peculiar bond. Others spoke in hushed tones about reincarnation, about spirits that lingered or souls that were tethered through powerful love. A few even speculated that the twins had received a divine blessing, carrying the light of their mother's spirit within them as a symbol of hope for the entire community. Jack was torn. Part of him wanted to shield his children from the town's prying eyes and unrelenting curiosity, but another part felt comforted by the collective love and awe his community expressed. He started to allow small gatherings at his home, close friends and family who wanted to spend time with the twins and pay their respects to Hannah's memory. One evening, as the small group sat in his living room, the twins, only a few months old, were lying on a blanket in the center of the room, their small hands locked together as if in silent communication. Suddenly, without warning, Eli let out a loud, distinct sound that could only be described as laughter. It was a sound far too advanced for a baby his age, and it stunned the room into silence. Emily followed, her small, bubbly laugh echoing her brother's. It was a pure, joyful sound, and in that moment, the room felt alive with a warmth that defied explanation. Jack could feel the weight of his grief lifting, replaced by a feeling he hadn't known in months: hope. Everyone in the room felt it too. As they looked at the twins, they felt Hannah's spirit, a quiet yet powerful presence that filled the room with love and light. A few days later, something even more astonishing happened. Jack was changing the twins in their nursery when he noticed a faint scent of lavender, Hannah's favorite fragrance. The scent was unmistakable, filling the room in waves, yet there was no lavender in the house. Jack froze, his heart racing as he looked around, half expecting to see Hannah standing there. The fragrance lingered, as if enveloping the room in a delicate embrace, before slowly fading away. Jack was left with tears in his eyes, a smile breaking through his sorrow. He knew this was no coincidence. Hannah was there, watching over them, making her presence known in the only way she could. The scent of lavender began to appear more frequently, always in moments of vulnerability or despair, as though Hannah herself were offering comfort. Whenever Jack found himself overwhelmed by the weight of single fatherhood, the lavender fragrance would fill the room, wrapping him in a warmth that no rational explanation could provide. Even friends and family who visited noticed it, marveling at the ethereal quality that seemed to follow the twins, as if they carried a guardian spirit who watched over them with fierce devotion. Jack's house became a gathering place for people seeking comfort, a symbol of resilience and love that defied logic. Even skeptics found themselves drawn to the twins, witnessing things that challenged their beliefs. Emily and Eli grew under the watchful eye of their father and the caring support of a community that loved them as fiercely as they did Hannah. And through it all, Jack kept Hannah's journal close, reading her words to the twins each night, as though her spirit lived on through the pages and through the echoes of love she had left behind. By the end of the year, the twins had become a phenomenon in Evergreen. People traveled from neighboring towns, drawn by tales of the miraculous children who had survived a tragedy, yet somehow embodied the spirit of a woman beloved by all. And though Jack had once felt unnerved by the attention, he now embraced it, understanding that Hannah's legacy had expanded beyond their family. It had become a part of the town's identity, a story shared by everyone who had loved her, each person carrying a piece of her memory as a testament to her life. As Jack sat by the fire one evening, holding the twins in his arms, he felt a peace settle over him, the kind that came only after enduring loss and finding hope on the other side. He looked down at Emily and Eli, their small faces alight with innocence and the promise of all that lay ahead. In a soft voice, he whispered, "Your mother loved you so much, and wherever she is, I know she's with us, watching over you both." The twins stirred, their tiny hands reaching for each other, and Jack could have sworn he saw a glimmer of recognition in their eyes, a quiet understanding that they, too, carried a part of their mother's heart. And in that silent, powerful moment, Jack realized that love truly knew no boundaries, no limitations, no end. Hannah's spirit lived on, woven into the fabric of their lives, guiding them, protecting them, and reminding them that even in loss, there could be light. As the twins grew, the air of mystery surrounding them deepened. Evergreen had now fully embraced the story of the miracle twins, and people from all over were drawn to the town, hoping to catch a glimpse of the children who had touched so many lives. To Jack, it felt surreal, almost as if he was living within a myth, one that he hadn't chosen, but had been woven around him by circumstances he couldn't control. His home, once a quiet sanctuary, was now frequently visited by friends, family, and strangers alike, all curious to see the twins who carried such a profound connection to Hannah. And while Jack welcomed these visits, he still felt a nagging unease, a reminder that his family's private life had, in some ways, been claimed by the community's reverence for Hannah and her legacy. One evening, as Jack prepared the twins for bed, Emily clutched his shirt tightly, her big eyes watching him with an intensity that seemed far too wise for a child. He smiled down at her, brushing her curls back from her forehead, and she responded by babbling softly, her tiny hands reaching for his face. Suddenly, Jack felt the faintest sensation, like a gentle, familiar hand resting on his shoulder. He froze, a wave of memories rushing over him as the scent of lavender filled the room once more, as vivid as if Hannah herself stood beside him. He glanced around, expecting to see a forgotten candle or sachet. But there was nothing, only the soft glow of the nightlight and the steady rhythm of his children's breaths. Moments like these had become a strange comfort to Jack, though he never spoke of them. He was afraid that if he shared his experiences with others, they might sound absurd, a grieving man's wishful thinking. But deep down, he felt that Hannah was there, watching over them, offering a reassurance he couldn't explain but could always feel. Each time the lavender scent appeared, it brought with it a peculiar warmth, a sense that all would be well, even in the moments when Jack's doubts and fears threatened to consume him. As the twins reached their first birthday, Jack decided it was time to have a small gathering, a celebration not just for his children, but for the community that had supported them through the difficult first year without Hannah. He invited close friends, family members, and a few of Hannah's colleagues from her teaching days. On the day of the party, people gathered in his backyard, bringing food, gifts, and their stories about Hannah. The event took on an almost reverent tone, with everyone sharing fond memories and marveling at how much the twins resembled their mother, both in appearance and in the gentle curiosity they displayed. But as the afternoon wore on, something remarkable happened. Reverend Thompson, who had officiated at Hannah's funeral and had watched over the family like a guardian since, asked if he could share a blessing for the twins. Jack nodded, and as the Reverend held his hands over the children, his voice gentle and filled with emotion, the air seemed to grow heavy with a peaceful stillness. Even the usual chatter from the crowd fell silent, as if an unseen presence had joined them, listening. The Reverend spoke of Hannah's kindness, her resilience, and the love she had poured into her family. He called upon that love to watch over Emily and Eli, to guide them through life as a testament to the strength and beauty of their mother's spirit. As he finished, the crowd erupted in applause, but beneath the reverent silence, Jack felt a tremor run through him. He turned to see both children looking upward, their eyes wide, almost mesmerized, as though they could see something no one else could. It was Emily who reached out first, her tiny hand grasping at the air, as if reaching for an invisible hand, her expression one of pure joy. After the party, a strange thing happened. One of Hannah's former students approached Jack, a young woman named Clara, who had just returned to Evergreen after several years away. Clara was known to be quiet, her demeanor often shy and reserved, yet she seemed unusually eager to speak to Jack. She held a small box in her hands, worn and faded, but clearly something she treasured. "Mr. Ellison," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, "I know this might sound strange, but I felt like I had to come here today. Hannah, she once helped me during a difficult time, and I never had the chance to thank her properly. She gave me this box and told me to keep it until I knew what I needed most. I think it might be meant for you now." Jack took the box, his curiosity piqued. Inside, he found a delicate hand-carved pendant of two doves intertwined, a symbol of unity and peace. It was beautiful, intricate, and felt oddly familiar. Clara explained that Hannah had carved it herself, spending days perfecting it during one of her art classes. "She told me that love, true love, binds us beyond what we can see or touch. I didn't understand it then, but I think I do now." She left quietly after that, leaving Jack alone with the pendant, its meaning settling over him like a warm blanket. The pendant became a constant reminder of Hannah's love and legacy. Jack hung it in the nursery, where it caught the morning sunlight, casting delicate, dancing shadows across the room. Emily and Eli would often watch it, their eyes following the gentle sway of the doves as if they, too, understood its significance. Jack felt as though the pendant acted as a conduit, a bridge connecting them to their mother, a reassurance that her love remained present, surrounding them all. Months later, during one particularly stormy night, Jack awoke to the sound of soft crying. Groggy and disoriented, he made his way to the nursery, only to find the twins standing in their cribs, looking not at each other, but at the pendant that hung by the window, gleaming in the faint light. As he approached, he noticed that the scent of lavender was back, filling the room with its familiar, soothing fragrance. The twins reached out, their little fingers stretching toward the pendant, and Jack, overwhelmed by the sight, found himself whispering a prayer of gratitude, thanking Hannah for this moment of peace amid the storm. That night, as the storm raged outside, Jack stayed by the twins' cribs, lulled into a calm he couldn't explain. The thunder, usually unsettling, now felt distant, muffled by the strange serenity that seemed to fill the room. It was as if Hannah herself was standing there, shielding them from the chaos outside. The lavender scent persisted, stronger than ever, and Jack felt his heart swell with a mixture of sorrow and joy, realizing that, in ways he would never fully understand, she was still with them, still protecting them. Word of the pendant and the lavender fragrance soon spread, adding yet another layer to the town's fascination with the twins. Visitors would come, hoping to catch a whiff of the scent or witness one of the twins' many miraculous moments. While Jack had initially been wary of the attention, he soon saw it as a way to honor Hannah, to share her legacy with those whose lives she had touched. Each visitor left with a story of their own, feeling changed, moved, as though they had glimpsed a piece of something greater than themselves. Over time, Jack found himself wondering less about the how and why of these events and more about their meaning. He came to see them as reminders of the love that had shaped his life, a love so powerful that it had found a way to transcend even death. He knew he couldn't keep the twins sheltered forever, but he was determined to raise them with an understanding of their mother's spirit, to teach them that they carried within them a love that had changed not only their lives, but the lives of everyone around them. As Emily and Eli continued to grow, they remained inseparable, their bond a living testament to the connection they shared with Hannah. Their laughter, their unspoken communication, the way they always reached for each other. It was as if they carried a secret language known only to them, a language that had been woven into their souls by the mother they would never remember, but would always feel. Jack marveled at this every day, grateful for the gift of their presence, the joy they brought him, and the quiet reminders of Hannah that followed them everywhere. And so, life continued in Evergreen, shaped by a love that refused to be forgotten. The lavender scent, the pendant, the uncanny connection the twins shared, all of these became symbols of the life and love that Hannah had left behind. Jack knew that, one day, he would tell them everything. share with them the full weight of their story and the legacy they carried. But for now, he was content to watch them grow, to bask in the simple joy of their laughter and the peace of knowing that Hannah, in some way, was always near. In the quiet moments, when the house was still and the twins were asleep, Jack would sometimes whisper into the darkness, hoping that somewhere, somehow, Hannah was listening. He would tell her of their children's laughter, of their milestones and small victories, and of the love that continued to grow, undiminished by time or distance. And though he never heard a reply, he felt an answer in the steady rhythm of his heart, a beat that seemed to echo hers, a reminder that, even in death, love lived on. As the years slipped by, the twins blossomed into curious and lively children, their bond growing stronger with each passing day. Emily and Eli were inseparable, their connection almost telepathic, as if they could read each other's minds. When one laughed, the other followed. When one cried, the other would reach out, sharing comfort in a way that went beyond words. Evergreen continued to watch them in awe, the children's unique connection a constant source of wonder and whispers. People spoke of them as Hannah's legacy, a living reminder of her kindness and spirit, woven into the fabric of the town's identity. Jack, though still grappling with his own grief, found solace in their laughter, in the small ways they reminded him of Hannah, and in the strange, quiet moments when he felt her presence lingering around them. One warm spring evening, as the golden light filtered through the trees, Jack took the twins for a walk along the creek, a place where he and Hannah had spent countless evenings together. As they strolled, the twins darted ahead, giggling as they chased butterflies and explored the wonders of the world around them. Jack smiled as he watched them, feeling a rare sense of peace. For a moment, it was as if Hannah were there, walking alongside him, sharing in the joy of their children. He closed his eyes, breathing in the scent of wildflowers, and in that stillness, he could almost feel her hand in his, a warmth that had never quite left him. Suddenly, Emily stopped, her small face turned skyward, her eyes wide with wonder. "Daddy," she whispered, pointing to the sky. "Do you see it?" Jack looked up, following her gaze, but saw only the evening sky painted in hues of orange and pink. "What is it, sweetheart?" he asked gently, crouching beside her. Emily's face softened into a serene smile. "Mommy's up there," she said simply, her voice filled with the innocent certainty of a child. Eli, standing beside her, nodded, as if he, too, could see what she saw. Jack felt a shiver run down his spine, his heart aching with both love and loss. How could they know? How could they feel something he himself struggled to grasp? As they returned home, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that Emily's words held a deeper truth. The house was quiet that evening, the air thick with an unspoken presence that seemed to wrap around them. Jack put the twins to bed, reading them a story and tucking them in with gentle kisses on their foreheads. As he turned to leave, Emily's tiny hand reached out, clutching his. "Don't be sad, Daddy," she murmured, her eyes filled with a wisdom that went beyond her years. "Mommy says she's always with us." Jack's throat tightened, and he managed a nod, brushing a tear from his cheek as he kissed her once more. It was as if the children understood something he could only feel in fragments, a truth woven into their very beings. That night, Jack lay awake, staring at the ceiling, his mind filled with memories of Hannah. He thought of their love, of the dreams they had shared, and the family they had built together. He thought of the pendant Clara had given him, the lingering scent of lavender, and the children's quiet understanding of things beyond his comprehension. In those small hours, he felt Hannah's presence more vividly than ever, as if she were beside him, watching over their children with the same fierce love she had shown in life. The next morning, as Jack prepared breakfast, there was a knock at the door. He opened it to find Reverend Thompson standing there, a somber look on his face. "Jack, may I speak with you?" the Reverend asked, his voice gentle yet insistent. Jack welcomed him inside, offering him a seat and a cup of coffee. The Reverend hesitated, then spoke, his tone filled with a quiet reverence. "Jack, I don't mean to intrude, but there's something I feel I must share with you. I've been praying over the children, asking for guidance, and I believe there's a reason they carry such a strong connection to Hannah." Jack listened, his heart pounding as the Reverend continued. "I believe they're here to remind us all of the power of love, to show us that even in death, love endures and that it binds us in ways we cannot see." Jack felt a surge of emotion, a mix of gratitude and awe. He had always felt that Hannah's spirit lingered around them, but hearing the Reverend's words gave him a new perspective, a sense of purpose that went beyond his own grief. That evening, he gathered the twins, sitting with them by the fire, the pendant of the intertwined doves gleaming softly in the dim light. He told them stories of their mother, of her kindness and bravery, of the love she had poured into their lives. The children listened with rapt attention, their faces lit with a quiet understanding that went beyond their years. And as Jack spoke, he felt the weight of his sorrow lifting, replaced by a deep, abiding sense of peace. But as peaceful as those moments were, the mysteries surrounding the twins only deepened. One night, a violent storm swept through Evergreen, its winds howling and rain pelting down in sheets. The town lost power, leaving homes shrouded in darkness. Jack, anxious and uneasy, gathered candles, placing them around the living room as the twins clung to him, their eyes wide with fear. The storm raged outside, thunder cracking through the night like a furious drumbeat. But inside, the house was filled with an eerie stillness. Jack held the twins close, murmuring reassurances as they trembled in his arms. Suddenly, the scent of lavender filled the room, stronger than ever before, wrapping around them like a protective cloak. Jack felt a strange calm settle over him, a peace that defied explanation. He looked down at the twins, their small faces softened, their fear replaced by a quiet sense of wonder. "Mommy's here," Emily whispered, her voice barely audible over the storm. Eli nodded, his hand reaching out as if to grasp something unseen. And in that moment, Jack felt it too, a presence, warm and gentle, surrounding them, protecting them from the chaos outside. When the storm finally passed, Jack felt as though he had emerged from a dream, his heart filled with an overwhelming sense of gratitude. He knew then, without a doubt, that Hannah was watching over them, her love a force as tangible as the air he breathed. The twins had felt it too, their connection to her a living testament to the love that had created them. Jack looked around the room, his gaze falling on the pendant that hung by the window, its delicate doves swaying gently in the aftermath of the storm. It was a reminder of all they had lost, but also of all they had gained, a love that had transcended even death, a bond that could never be broken. In the weeks that followed, Jack noticed a change in the twins. They seemed more attuned to the world around them, their eyes filled with a quiet wisdom that went beyond their years. They spoke of their mother often, recounting dreams and visions that left Jack both comforted and unsettled. Emily would sometimes wake in the middle of the night, her face serene, as if she had been visited by someone only she could see. And Eli, though quieter, would often look to the sky, his gaze filled with a longing that reminded Jack of Hannah's quiet strength. The town, too, felt the shift. People began to speak of the twins not just as Hannah's legacy, but as a symbol of hope, a reminder that love endured even in the face of loss. Evergreen held a candlelight vigil in their honor, gathering around Jack's home to pay tribute to the children who had touched their lives in ways they couldn't fully understand. As the candles flickered in the night, casting a warm glow over the crowd, Jack felt an overwhelming sense of unity, a bond that had been forged through love and shared sorrow. In the quiet moments after the vigil, Jack stood by the twins' cribs, watching them sleep, their faces peaceful, their breaths steady and soft. He felt a warmth settle over him, a sense of contentment that had been absent since Hannah's passing. And as he stood there, he made a silent vow to raise his children with the same love and kindness that Hannah had shown him, to honor her memory by instilling in them the values she had held dear. They were her legacy, her heart made flesh, and he knew that as long as they lived, so too would her spirit. That night, as he drifted to sleep, he felt a gentle touch on his cheek, a sensation so familiar it brought tears to his eyes. He whispered a quiet thank you, hoping that wherever Hannah was, she could hear him. And though he received no reply, he felt her presence surrounding him, a love that had transcended the boundaries of life and death, a bond that would carry them all into whatever lay beyond. In the stillness, he understood that they were never truly alone. That love, in all its mystery and power, would guide them forward, illuminating the path with a light that would never fade. Years passed, and Jack watched his children grow, their bond deepening as they blossomed into young adults. Emily and Eli, now in their early teens, continued to be the heart of Evergreen, their connection to each other, and to the memory of their mother, unwavering. The whispers about the twins never truly faded. Instead, they transformed into stories, folklore that circulated through town gatherings and quiet conversations at the local diner. Some spoke of the lavender scent that would sometimes accompany them, others of the unusual moments of synchronicity between the twins. But for Jack, the mysteries surrounding them had become part of his life, a sacred rhythm that beat quietly in the background, binding him to Hannah in ways he had long accepted and cherished. One sunny afternoon, as Emily and Eli wandered through the fields beyond town, they came across an old, forgotten cemetery, its stones weathered and overgrown. The twins had always felt drawn to places that seemed suspended in time, and this place, with its faded headstones and moss-covered statues, felt almost like a hidden treasure waiting to be discovered. As they explored, they found themselves standing in front of a small stone with an engraving so faint they could barely read it. Eli, ever curious, knelt down to brush away the leaves and dirt, revealing a single line that made both their hearts skip a beat. Love transcends all things, even death. The words resonated deeply with the twins, and for reasons they couldn't fully explain, they felt an immediate kinship with the unknown soul resting beneath the stone. Emily knelt beside her brother, her fingers tracing the faint letters. In a quiet voice, she said, "Do you think that's true? That love can last even after everything else is gone?" Eli nodded, his gaze soft. "I think that's what Mom wanted us to know." They sat there for a long time, silent, feeling the weight of the words settle into their hearts. For them, their mother had always been a presence in their lives, not just a memory, but a force, a love that had guided them, comforted them, and protected them in ways they couldn't explain. When they returned home, they found Jack in the garden, his face softened by the afternoon light, his hands busy pruning the roses Hannah had planted years before. Emily and Eli approached him, their expressions thoughtful, the words on the gravestone lingering in their minds. "Dad," Emily began, her voice hesitant, do you believe that love can really last forever?" Jack looked up, surprised by the depth of her question, but he smiled, sensing the profound thoughts stirring within his children. He set down his shears and motioned for them to join him on the garden bench. "Yes," he replied, his voice filled with quiet conviction. "I believe love is the one thing that never truly fades. It might change, might become something different, but it's always there, shaping us, guiding us. Your mother taught me that." He reached out, taking their hands, and felt a familiar warmth spread through him, as though Hannah herself were holding them all together in that moment. The twins leaned into his embrace, feeling the strength of his love, and in that silence, they understood that the connection they shared with their mother was eternal, woven into their very souls. As the weeks passed, the twins became more attuned to the subtle ways in which Hannah's presence manifested around them. The lavender scent appeared at the strangest times, when they argued, when they laughed, when they sat in quiet companionship. One evening, as they gathered around the dinner table, Eli noticed the faint fragrance drifting through the room, and he exchanged a knowing glance with his sister. Their bond, strengthened by the years and the love that had surrounded them, had become a silent understanding, an unbreakable connection that needed no words. Jack, watching them, felt an overwhelming gratitude for the life they had built together, for the strength they had inherited from a woman who continued to watch over them. One summer, as Evergreen prepared for its annual festival, Jack received an unexpected letter in the mail. It was from a renowned author who had heard about the story of Hannah's twins, their unique connection, and the whispers of her lingering presence. The author wanted to interview Jack, hoping to capture their story as a testament to the enduring power of love. Jack felt a mixture of hesitation and pride. He had always guarded his family's privacy, but the thought of sharing Hannah's story, of allowing her love to inspire others, filled him with a sense of purpose he hadn't anticipated. After discussing it with Emily and Eli, who were now old enough to understand the implications, Jack agreed to the interview. The author arrived a week later, a thoughtful woman with a gentle demeanor, who spent hours listening to Jack's account of his life with Hannah, her tragic passing, and the mysteries that had followed. She listened to his stories of lavender-scented nights and the children's uncanny connection to their mother, her eyes glistening as she absorbed every detail. Emily and Eli shared their own memories, describing the times they had felt their mother's presence, the dreams in which she had visited them, the way they always felt watched over and protected. The author, moved by their story, promised to write a book that would honor Hannah's memory, a story that would show the world that love was not limited by time or space. Over the next year, the book was written, weaving together Jack's memories, the twins' experiences, and the author's reflections on the nature of love and loss. When it was finally published, it became an instant success, touching readers across the country, many of whom wrote to Jack, sharing their own stories of love that had survived beyond loss. The book became a symbol, a beacon of hope for those who had loved and lost, and Evergreen was flooded with visitors who came to pay tribute to the woman who had inspired it all. Jack, who had once worried about the attention surrounding his family, now welcomed the visitors with open arms. He saw the book's success as a way to keep Hannah's spirit alive, to share her love with those who needed it most. Emily and Eli, now young adults, took great pride in their mother's legacy, feeling honored to be part of something so profound. They became guides for the visitors, sharing their own stories, leading them to the quiet spots where they felt their mother's presence most strongly, the creek where she and Jack had walked, the garden filled with her roses, the small forgotten cemetery with the gravestone that spoke of love's endurance. One night, after the last visitor had left, Jack and the twins sat together by the fire, feeling the weight of the journey they had traveled together. Jack looked at his children, seeing Hannah's spirit in their eyes, her kindness in their smiles, her strength in their hearts. He realized that he had come full circle, that he had found peace in a journey that had begun with heartbreak, but had led him to a place of acceptance and joy. As they sat in comfortable silence, Emily turned to her father, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do you think Mom is proud of us?" Jack's heart swelled, and he reached out, pulling both children into a warm embrace. "Yes," he said softly. "She is proud of you both. She loved you more than anything, and I know she's with us every day, guiding us, loving us." In that moment, the lavender scent filled the room once more, enveloping them in a familiar warmth that brought tears to Jack's eyes. It was as if Hannah herself had come to answer the question, to reassure them that love, indeed, never faded. The years continued to pass, and as Emily and Eli grew into adults, they carried their mother's legacy with them, sharing her story with those they met, inspiring others to believe in the strength of love. Evergreen, too, became known as a place of miracles, a small town touched by the presence of a love that had transcended life itself. And Jack, who had once felt the crushing weight of loss, now lived in the light of a love that had endured, a love that had shaped him, sustained him, and guided him forward. In his final years, Jack often visited Hannah's grave, a quiet spot beneath the trees where the lavender grew wild. He would sit there for hours, speaking to her, telling her of the lives they had built, of the children they had raised, of the love that had never faded. And though he never heard a reply, he always felt her there, a gentle presence in the rustling leaves, a soft warmth in the evening air. In those moments, he knew with a certainty that defied words that he would see her again, that love would guide them together once more, beyond time, beyond death, beyond the world they had known. When Jack finally passed, Evergreen held a celebration of life, honoring the man who had shown them all the power of love. Emily and Eli stood together, carrying their father's legacy, knowing that they, too, were part of something eternal. And as they looked out over the crowd, the scent of lavender drifted through the air, a final gift, a quiet reminder that love, true love, was forever. It was a bond unbroken, a promise fulfilled, a journey completed, and a legacy that would live on through them, in the gentle embrace of a mother's spirit and a father's unwavering love. The days following Grant's suspension brought a wave of both relief and resistance, each day carrying its own turbulence as the precinct adjusted to the fallout. For Lisa, the relief was tempered by the knowledge that her work was far from over. With Grant now officially removed from active duty, the spotlight fell directly on her, as she'd become the unwitting symbol of change within the department. To her supporters, she was a beacon of hope and a sign that someone was willing to challenge the system. To her detractors, however, she was a threat, someone who had betrayed the unspoken code of silence that bound officers together. The backlash had become fierce and increasingly personal. Lisa's inbox overflowed with anonymous messages, some of them supportive, but many were filled with accusations and insults. She'd known this would happen. She had prepared herself for it. But there was no training that could shield her from the sting of each harsh word. Her closest friends within the precinct were now distant, and the quiet tension had turned into open hostility from certain corners. Some officers would deliberately turn their backs when she walked by, muttering under their breath as she passed. Others made no effort to hide their disdain, casting cold, challenging looks as if daring her to confront them. One morning, as she sat in her office preparing a report, she received a call from Chief Walker, asking her to attend a closed-door meeting with the city council and a few prominent community leaders. The council had been following the investigation closely, and with growing pressure from the public, they were eager to address not only Grant's case, but the broader implications for the department. Lisa sensed the importance of this meeting. This was her chance to advocate for deeper changes that could prevent someone like Grant from slipping through the cracks again. The meeting took place in a modest conference room at City Hall. The council members sat in a semicircle, their expressions a mixture of seriousness and curiosity, while community leaders filled the other seats, including ministers, local activists, and even a few concerned citizens who had taken up the cause. Chief Walker was there as well, his face impassive but tense. Lisa felt the weight of their collective gaze, the high expectations that her actions had set. She had come this far, and she knew that to back down now would undermine everything she had fought for. One council member, Councilwoman Green, addressed her directly. "Captain Moore, we understand that you've taken a significant stand against misconduct within your precinct, and the community appreciates your courage. However, we need to understand how this could have happened in the first place. We want to know what safeguards failed and how we can ensure they're reinforced moving forward." Lisa took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. "Councilwoman Green, I believe this isn't simply about one officer's misconduct, but about a culture that sometimes places loyalty above accountability. For years, there have been complaints, red flags, but they were ignored or minimized. Some officers felt they couldn't speak up, either out of fear of repercussions or because they believed it wouldn't make a difference. We need structural changes that empower officers to come forward without fearing backlash and systems that ensure every complaint is thoroughly investigated." As she spoke, she could feel the intensity of the room shift. Heads nodded, murmurs of agreement passed among the community leaders. She explained her vision for mandatory training sessions focused on ethical policing, on the importance of open dialogues between officers and the communities they served. But her proposals went beyond training. She suggested an independent review board that could oversee internal investigations to ensure that cases weren't quietly swept under the rug, especially cases that involved biases or abuse of power. Chief Walker listened in silence, but Lissa could tell he was absorbing her words with a mixture of pride and apprehension. Her proposals were bold, even controversial, but they were exactly what the community needed to hear. When she finished, there was a brief silence, a moment in which the gravity of her suggestions seemed to sink in. Councilwoman Green broke the quiet, her tone approving but cautious. "Captain Moore, your suggestions are ambitious, and I believe you've made a compelling case. But we'll need support from within the department as well. Do you think the precinct is ready for this kind of change?" Lisa knew this was the pivotal question. The precinct was divided. That much was certain, and while she had supporters, there were many who resented her for challenging the status quo. She glanced at Chief Walker, then back at the council, her resolve unshaken.